In a house where the clocks are always synchronized and the roses are perfectly trimmed, silence isn't peace. It's a survival tactic. The day in the Sterling household begins at exactly 5:30 a.m. Elena moves like a ghost, her footsteps silent on the cold marble. Her husband Victor, a man obsessed with absolute order, expects his signature green juice to be placed in the exact center of his mahogany desk. One morning, Victor's brow furrows as he takes a sip. The texture is off by a fraction. Elena pheezes, her heart hammering against her ribs. She immediately adjusts the glass by a millimeter, her hands trembling. Victor notices a faint bruise on her cheek, a mark he gave her the night before. Suddenly, his cold eyes soften into a terrifyingly tender gaze. He pulls out a high-end ointment and begins to apply it with professional care, whispering that he only wants her to be perfect. Elena can only apologize for her clumsiness, trapped in a cycle of fear and forced gratitude. As soon as Victor's luxury sedan pulls out of the driveway, the mask falls. Elena's daily goodbye kiss at the door is a practiced reflex. Once alone, the silence of the house is broken only by her ragged breathing. She retreats to a hidden corner of the kitchen, pulling out a concealed bottle of high-proof gin. She doesn't drink for pleasure. She drinks to numb the physical and mental ache. Every day, she swallows a contraceptive pill with a burning dope of alcohol. She refuses to bring a child into this polished prison. For a few hours, she hides in a small utility room, where the sun hits the floor just right, stealing a few moments of sleep in a world that doesn't belong to Victor. One afternoon, Elena wakes up in a panic. It's 6:15 p.m. Victor is already home. She scrambles into the kitchen, the smell of unburned gas and raw ingredients filling the air. In her haste, she drops a heavy metal lid, the clang echoing through the house like a gunshot. Victor enters, his face a mask of calm. Instead, he looks at the messy stove and then at Elena's burnt hand. "You seem so distracted lately," he says softly, his voice trailing over her skin. "I realized I need to take better care of you. I have a surprise." The surprise is a series of sleek, high-definition cameras installed in every corner of the house. No blind spots, no more hidden naps. Victor can now monitor her every movement from his office downtown. His control has become absolute, a digital noose tightening around her neck. After a silent dinner, the nightly inspection begins. Victor scrolls through Elena's phone, checking every message and call log. Finding nothing, he smiles and produces a velvet box. Elena forces a bright professional smile. Inside is a diamond necklace, a heavy, sparkling shackle. As Victor stands behind her to fasten the clasp, he brushes aside her hair, revealing the deep purple marks on the back of her neck. He stares at them for a moment, his expression unreadable, then clicks the lock shut. In the dark corner of her closet, Elena looks at a growing collection of gift boxes, each one representing a scar, each one a trophy of Victor's love. She realizes she isn't a wife. She is a prized specimen in a private gallery. The luxury items in the Sterling house aren't accessories. They are receipts of pain. Every necklace and earring represents a hidden bruise, a dark archive of a life lived in fear. The hypocrisy reaches a fever pitch when Victor receives an invitation to his mother's high-profile gala. His mother, Madame Helena, is a world-renowned anti-domestic violence advocate. That evening, Victor treats Elena like a lifeless mannequin. He holds up various designer dresses against her body, searching for the one that offers the most coverage. Elena knows the stakes. She eventually selects a high-necked, long-sleeved gown to hide the fresh welts on her arms. At the event, Madame Helena stands on stage, delivering a powerful, tear-jerking speech about the sanctity of women's safety. Every word is a jagged needle in Elena's heart. She looks at her mother-in-law, knowing that this advocate is the primary accomplice to her son's cruelty. During the dinner, Madame Helena catches a glimpse of a scar on Elena's wrist. Her eyes remain cold and professional. She knows exactly what her son is capable of, but she chooses to protect the Sterling brand over a human life. The tension breaks when Victor's sister, Vicky, joins the table. Vicky is a sharp, ambitious detective, and her presence immediately puts Victor on edge. 3 months ago, in a moment of desperate courage, Elena had snuck into a forensic clinic. She obtained a full medical report, x-rays, and photos of her injuries. She had carried the envelope to the central precinct to file a report, but as fate would have it, Vicky was stationed there. Seeing her sister-in-law looking frantic, Vicky had cornered her. "What brings you to my precinct, Elena?" Vicky had asked, her voice dripping with mock concern. Before Elena could speak, a junior officer, an old schoolmate, offered to help her fast-track her filing. In a panic, Elena tried to flee, accidentally spilling her files across the floor. She scrambled to gather them and ran, but a single forensic photo was left behind. Vicky picked it up, her face remaining a mask of indifference. She didn't offer help. Instead, she cornered Elena in the hallway and delivered a chilling warning. "My brother's reputation is the family's reputation. Don't make a mistake you can't undo." Realizing there is no justice to be found in the city, Elena finalizes a secret plan. She moves her elderly mother to a private care facility and buys a one-way ticket to a country with no extradition. At the airport, the air finally feels breathable. She stands at the boarding gate, her passport in hand, but then her phone vibrates. It's a message from Victor. She ignores it, but the second message contains an image that stops her heart. It's a photo of her mother's hand. Victor has found her. The image shows her mother's thumb. The nail has been brutally torn away. Before Elena can breathe, a video call comes through. She answers in a daze of horror. On the screen, Victor is standing over her mother, his face calm and professional. He looks at the camera and slowly, methodically, begins to crush her mother's fingers under his boot. The sound of her mother's screams echoes through the sterile airport terminal. Elena looks at the plane, her freedom, and then at the screen. The trap has snapped shut. With tears streaming down her face and her soul completely shattered, she turns away from the gate and begins the long, slow walk back into the mouth of the beast. In a world defined by silence, even a doorbell can sound like an explosion. Elena's return to the Sterling house isn't a homecoming. It's a voluntary walk back into a high-tech cage, and this time, the bars are electrified with a new level of terror. Since her failed escape, Elena moves through the house like a ghost, haunting her own life. After a tense family dinner, where Vicky cold-bloodedly confirmed that Elena had stopped trying to seek help, the atmosphere shifted. Victor, fueled by expensive wine and a growing suspicion that Elena was communicating with his sister behind his back, cornered her in the kitchen. "You're being quiet tonight, Elena," he whispered, his shadow looming over her. "Are you planning another vacation?" Desperate to change the subject, Elena tried to distract him with his nightly ritual. "I'll make your juice, Victor, but I think we're out of beets." It was a lie, a desperate attempt to get out of the house and clear her head at the supermarket. But Victor didn't just take her word for it. He ripped open the refrigerator door, revealing a drawer full of fresh, deep red beets. The silence that followed was suffocating. With a roar of professional calm turned into primal rage, he shattered a glass against the wall and delivered a correction that left Elena trembling on the kitchen floor. Just as Elena was struggling to stand, her phone began to vibrate. It was Maya, her oldest friend, and the only person who remembered the woman Elena used to be. Elena stared at the screen, paralyzed. She couldn't answer. How could she explain the bruises or the cameras? Then the doorbell rang. Maya was standing on the porch, her face full of concern. Elena watched her through the security monitor, her heart racing. "Go away, Maya. Please just go away," she prayed. She tried to ignore the door, but a notification popped up on her phone. A delivery had arrived. Thinking she could quickly grab the package and avoid Maya, Elena cracked the door open, but Maya was faster. She blocked the door with her foot, her eyes widening as she took in Elena's pale face, and the high-collared shirt meant to hide the marks on her neck. "Elena, talk to me," Maya demanded, pushing her way inside. Elena panicked, her eyes darting to the ceiling corners, where Victor's cameras blinked with a steady red light. "You have to leave, Maya. Now. If he sees you on the feed." She dragged Maya into the one place the cameras couldn't see clearly, the small, cluttered utility warehouse behind the kitchen. In the dim light, Maya's eyes fell on a box overflowing with discarded medical tape and half-empty tubes of professional-grade bruising ointment. "Is this from him?" Maya asked, her voice a sharp blade of anger. She reached out, touching the expensive diamond necklace Victor had recently gifted Elena. "I saw him buy this at the boutique where I work. He told everyone it was for his perfect wife." Elena tried to pull away, her voice a weak whisper of excuses. "It's not what you think. I'm just clumsy. Victor loves me." Maya grabbed Elena by the shoulders, refusing to let her hide any longer. "Elena, stop! Look at this room. Look at these bandages." A chime echoed through the house. A text from Victor. "I'm leaving the office early today. See you in 10 minutes, my love." She began to sob, the professional mask finally shattering into 1,000 jagged pieces. "He'll kill me if he finds you here," she gasped. "He hits me, Maya. He hits me for the juice, for the silence, for everything. Please, you have to go before he gets home." But Maya didn't move toward the door. Instead, she looked at the survival manual Elena had hidden under a pile of linens. "I'm not leaving you in this hell," she said firmly. "If we're going to run, we're doing it together, and we're doing it now." In a house built on silence, the past has a way of screaming. Maya's refusal to leave isn't just about Elena. It's about the ghosts of her own childhood. Standing in the dimly lit utility room, Maya's eyes glaze over as the trauma of her youth rushes back. She remembers the sound of her father's heavy footsteps, and the way she used to grab her little brother, dragging him into the darkness of the bedroom closet. They would sit there for hours, huddled among the coats, waiting for the crashing sounds in the living room to stop. Only when the house fell into a terrifying silence did they dare to crawl out. The cycle didn't break until Maya was in high school. She walked home one afternoon to find her mother standing on the edge of the balcony, ready to leap. Maya had screamed, lunging forward to pull her back from the railing. Even then, her mother's first instinct wasn't to seek safety, but to protect the peace. "Don't tell your brother. Don't tell your father," her mother had whispered, trembling. That silence was a slow poison, and seeing Elena trapped in the same golden cage makes Maya's blood boil. She was saved by Elena once, when she was at her lowest. Now, she refuses to be a silent bystander. To protect Elena from Victor's immediate suspicion, Maya finally agrees to leave before he pulls into the driveway. But the connection isn't severed. Late that night, while Victor is in a deep, wine-induced sleep, Elena creeps out of bed. She moves with the precision of a thief, avoiding the floorboards she knows will creak. She retreats to the utility room, the only place she feels even a shred of herself, and pulls out her phone. A message from Maya pops up, an old photo of the two of them from years ago. In the picture, they are sitting on a park bench, faces smeared with bright lipstick and sticky candy, laughing without a single care in the world. For a fleeting second, the professional, terrified mask Elena wears every day cracks. She allows herself one sob, one moment of genuine grief for the girl she used to be. Then, with a practiced thumb, she deletes the photo and the entire chat log. She knows Victor's morning inspection is only hours away.
The next day, Victor forced Elena to attend an elite art gala. He needed to display his perfect wife to impress a powerful donor, Madame Vane. Elena, numb and desperate, began to drown her fear in glass after glass of heavy spirits. The alcohol acted like a key, unlocking the woman she used to be, a brilliant rising painter whose career Victor had crushed out of jealousy. Stumbling toward a painting done by Madame Vane herself, Elena's professional eye couldn't stay silent. "The perspective is hollow," she slurred, her voice carrying across the silent room. "It's an imitation of talent, not the soul." The room went cold. Victor's face turned into a mask of stone. He grabbed Elena, his fingers digging into her arm as he forced a professional smile for the crowd. "She's had too much excitement," he hissed. But the damage was done. The perfect sterlings had a crack in their porcelain. The punishment for the gala was more than just a correction. Victor forced Elena to stand outside in a freezing downpour for hours, reflecting on her embarrassment. Soaked to the bone and shivering, Elena reached her limit. She pulled out her phone and sent a final, haunting message to Mila. "I want it to end. I can't die at his hands." Mila arrived just as the darkness was swallowing Elena whole. She found her sister collapsed in the mud, ready to give up. "If I die, it finally stops," Elena sobbed. "No," Mila whispered, pulling her sister into a fierce embrace. "If you die, he wins. If you want to end it, we don't end you, we end him." At 4 a.m., as the rain turned into a soft mist, the two sisters sat in the dark. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. The scam of the perfect marriage was over. The hunt was beginning. At 4 a.m., driven by years of despair, Elena stood on a chair in the center of the living room. She looped a rope over the crystal chandelier, ready to end her suffering on her own terms. But the sound of a falling chair woke Julian. He burst into the room, his eyes wide, not with grief, but with calculation. He didn't call the police. He knew that if the authorities found Elena with a rope around her neck and a body covered in his corrections, his career and high society status would vanish. As Elena gasped for air, Julian's first reaction was to scold her for being selfish enough to risk his reputation. Elena, seeing his true face one last time, grabbed a pair of scissors. "Break the cameras, or I finish it now," she hissed. Fearing a corpse in his living room more than a loss of control, Julian stepped back and smashed the surveillance system himself. He didn't realize he had just dismantled his own fortress. With the cameras gone, the two sisters, Elena and Mila, began to plot a permanent solution. They knew that simply killing Julian would lead to a prison cell. They needed him to disappear. Mila, a woman who had spent years fighting in wrestling rings and knows how to handle a physical threat, found a desperate immigrant worker named Zhang. With a matching haircut and an identical suit, Zhang looked like Julian's twin. The plan was simple. Mila would give Zhang a large sum of cash and a forged passport to leave the country as Julian Vance. If the world saw Julian board a plane and never return, he would be a missing person, not a murder victim. The plan hit a snag when Julian's sister, the detective Serena, spotted Mila and Zhang together on the street. She narrowed her eyes, assuming her brother was having a tawdry affair, and walked away in disgust. She didn't realize she was looking at the man meant to steal her brother's identity. The strike was set for Thursday, the night of the company dinner, when Julian always returned home late and intoxicated. While Julian was being toasted as a model businessman at a fancy restaurant, he received a sudden notification on his phone. A flight confirmation for a trip he hadn't booked. The alcohol fog cleared instantly. He realized Elena had access to his travel accounts. He roared home, stumbling through the door, only to find the house eerily quiet. He marched into the bedroom, ready to deliver a final lesson, but emotion. Zhang was at the doorbell rang. Just as Elena and Mila were scrubbing the crimson stains from the door shut, she saw the neighbor's eyes flicker toward a dark smudge on the tile. The neighbor left, but the oranges came with a note. She had accidentally scratched Elena's car and came to apologize. The small, mundane kindness felt like a lightning bolt of terror. Even a friendly neighbor was now a potential witness to their nightmare. There was no time for grief. The sisters hauled out a massive reinforced suitcase, the kind used for long international trips. It took every ounce of their strength to fold Julian's stiffening frame into the dark fabric. Once the zipper clicked shut, the room felt empty, but the weight of what they had done sat heavy in the air. Meanwhile, Zhang the double was preparing for his exit. He gathered his coworkers for a final drink, claiming he was leaving the country for a better life. But his boss, Mr. Chen, was suspicious. He knew exactly how much Zhang earned, and the expensive new suit and Julian Vance's haircut didn't make sense. Going to Incheon? Or maybe Pyeongtaek? Mr. Chen probed, watching Zhang's eyes. He mentioned Mila's name and Zhang flinched. The lie was holding, but the cracks were starting to show. The next morning, Zhang arrived at the mansion. Elena dressed him in Julian's finest tailored suit, into the heavy suitcase containing the real Julian. Zhang grabbed the handle, expecting a normal weight, but the bag didn't budge. He had to use both hands, straining to drag the missing businessman toward the elevator. To keep his spirits up, "Who was that leaving with the heavy bags?" she asked, her gaze roaming the living room. "Just a student helping me move some old catering equipment," Elena lied, her voice steady despite the adrenaline. Serena's eyes locked onto a pair of battered. The silence between the two women was a battleground. Inside the mansion, Elena was a nervous wreck. Serena, the detective sister, was still lingering. While Serena was in the bathroom, she leaned in to clean a smudge off the mirror, but her cloth came back stained with a faint, rusty red. Elena's heart stopped. Serena's professional instinct gave the floor. Elena noticed a fresh drop of blood on the tile. In a split-second scramble, she dropped to her knees, pretending to clean a spill, and wiped it away just as Serena looked down. "Your socks are stained, Serena. Let me get you some coffee," Elena stammered, leading her away from the crime scene. Serena had come to tell Elena about Julian's supposed affair, but seeing Elena's frantic state, she kept it to herself. As she left, Serena's foot crunched on a tiny shard of glass, a piece of the sculpture used to kill Julian. She picked up the heavy glass orb from the corner. eyes narrowing. Julian is such a perfectionist, Serena mused. He'd never leave a mess like this. While Elena dealt with the police, Mila was at the airport. She watched Zhang, the man who looked exactly like Julian, board the plane with the decoy luggage. She thought the nightmare was over. But the next morning, the front door opened. Elena looked up and screamed. Standing there was Julian, or a man who looked exactly like him. It was Zhang. He hadn't left. He had figured out the sisters' secret. Julian Vance was a heavy man to carry, Zhang sneered, his voice a low, gravelly threat. He walked into the house like he owned it, helping himself to Julian's clothes and expensive scotch. He had found a video on Julian's cloud storage, showing the abuse Elena suffered, and he knew Julian was dead. I want 3 billion won, Zhang demanded, sitting in Julian's favorite chair. You have 5 days to pay me, or I go to Serena. And we both know what a detective does to a murderer. He tried to open Julian's private safe, but the code failed. He didn't care. He knew he had the sisters trapped. Zhang's greed turned into bloodlust almost immediately. As he was leaving the apartment, he ran into the elderly building security guard. The old man, thinking Zhang was the real Julian, greeted him warmly. Fearing the old man might notice a flaw in his disguise and ruin his payday, Zhang lured the guard into the basement and killed him in cold blood. Now the missing person case has turned into a double homicide. Mila raced to Elena's side, but as they pulled into the complex, they saw the blue and red lights of police cruisers. The guard's body had already been found. Elena and Mila sat in the shadows of the living room, counting their savings. They were billions of won short. We have to sell the house, Elena whispered, her eyes hollow. They had killed a monster only to be haunted by a ghost who was even more greedy. Zhang, the man with Julian's face, has become a loose cannon. He didn't just find the secret of the murder. He found the shallow grave in the woods. He is no longer satisfied with a small payoff. He wants the full 3 billion won, and he's willing to burn everything down to get it. To turn up the pressure, Zhang took a dangerous step. He messaged Madame Helena, Julian's powerful mother. Using Julian's phone and identity, he began to toy with her, knowing that the perfect sterling reputation is her most prized possession. Zhang is smart, but he has one fatal flaw. He loves to drink and brag. The scam hit a major snag at a local club. Zhang, drunk on expensive scotch and his newfound power, began flashing cash and acting like a king. The staff, confused by his behavior, called his former employer, Mr. Chen. Mr. Chen arrived and silenced the waiters with a bribe, but then he saw the phone Zhang was carrying. It was Julian's personal device, filled with horrific photos of the abuse Elena had suffered. Mr. Chen realized the missing businessman hadn't just vanished, he had been replaced. When Zhang tried to act tough, the old boss didn't flinch. He saw right through the expensive suit. Zhang, terrified by a man who truly knew his past, could only scream into the empty air once Mr. Chen walked away. The walls are closing in on the blackmailer too. Back at the mansion, Elena took a desperate gamble. She hired a locksmith to bypass Julian's high-security safe. When the heavy door finally swung open, the sisters gasped. They expected papers and a little cash, but instead, they found 10 solid gold bars. This was far more wealth than Julian had ever shown on his bank statements. It was blood money, hidden from the world. Zhang, sensing the sisters were stalling, called for a meeting. He told them to bring the payment to a remote location near the original burial site. As they drove deeper into the desolate countryside, the atmosphere turned deadly. Zhang's greed has turned into madness. You think I'm afraid of one more body? He snarled, his eyes reflecting the dark road ahead. I'll take my money, and if I have to kill you both to keep it, I will. As they arrived in the quiet outskirts of Daegu, the silence of the woods felt like a trap. No one knows they are there. The sisters have the gold, but Zhang has the face of a dead man and the soul of a killer. Serena, the police sister, had always prided herself on being the smartest person in the room, but when she intercepted Zhang on the road, she made a fatal error. She assumed he was her brother Julian. Zhang, sensing he was cornered by a cop, panicked. But as Serena began to question him about Julian's phone and his strange behavior, Zhang realized Serena was just as corrupt as her brother. She wasn't there to arrest a killer. She was there to protect the family's political future. Serena was in the middle of a massive promotion cycle, and any scandal involving her brother, whether he was a domestic abuser or a corpse, would destroy her career. Zhang saw his opening. He admitted he wasn't Julian, and dropped a bombshell. I know where your brother is buried. and I know your sister-in-law Elena and her friend Mila did it. Serena's cold heart calculated the odds. She didn't want justice for Julian, she wanted leverage. She agreed to Zhang's demand for 3 billion won, but with a discount. She would pay him to disappear forever once the body was recovered and the sisters were silenced. They drove to the remote woods, but when they reached the site, the grave was empty. Serena realized she had been outplayed by the very women she looked down upon. Serena tracked Elena and Mila to a safe house. She didn't come with a warrant to arrest the sisters and bury the truth. Her own phone rang. It was the chief of police. Serena. The chief's voice was like ice. We've received evidence that you used your position to cover up your brother's financial crimes and his illegal flight from the country. There are records of you pressuring officers to hide domestic abuse files. You have 1 hour to turn yourself in. Serena looked at the sisters, her face turning ashen. The double had fled, and the sterling name was finally being dragged into the light. In a final desperate confrontation, Julian's mother, the famous advocate for women's safety, faced the man who wore her son's face. Zhang, bloody and cornered, finally spat out the truth that she had spent years pretending not to see. Your son is dead, Zhang laughed, a jagged, broken sound. He's been gone for a long time. She didn't have to serve juice at 5:30 a.m. She didn't have to hide her scars. In prison, Elena returned to her art. She painted the truth, no longer hollow imitations, but soulful, raw expressions of survival. 2 years later, when she walked out of those gates, she wasn't the broken wife of Julian Vance. She was Elena, a woman who had survived the storm and learned how to breathe again. This story is a powerful reminder that appearances are often a trap. It moves from a private horror story into a public reckoning, showing that domestic violence is never just family business. It is a failure of the entire community. The ending is bittersweet. While the characters face legal consequences, they gain a spiritual freedom that Julian's money could never buy. The ultimate lesson is that living a lie is a slower death than any prison sentence. Elena found her happiest time behind bars because she was finally living in reality. It wasn't just about Julian dying. It was about the system that protected him being exposed. We can choose to be like the mother and sister, protecting a brand while people suffer. Or we can be like Mila, who risked everything to break the cycle.